The gate slammed shut with metallic crack, so loud it sliced through the laughter, and instantly 30 luxury cars fell silent behind the steel bars of my backyard, like caged animals sensing danger. Engines idled, champagne sloshed in crystal glasses, and guests who had been smugly parading in designer outfits froze mid-movement. At the center of the chaos stood the HOA president, her heels sinking into my lawn as she pounded on the gate and screamed, "This is shared property. You can't do this." But what she didn't realize was that this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a glitch. This was the moment I decided I was done letting entitled people walk over the one sanctuary I had spent years building. 5 minutes earlier, my property looked like a luxury resort someone had rented for the night. Music thumped, lights sparkled in my therapeutic pool, and strangers lounged around like they owned the place. They didn't bother knocking. They didn't ask permission. They walked in because the HOA president told them she had the authority to open my gate. And maybe they believed her. After all, people like her always look like they were in charge. Expensive perfume, diamond bracelets, lips lined with the confidence of someone who had never heard the word no and taken it seriously. But tonight was different. Tonight she learned that I wasn't the kind of person who rolled over. I wasn't built that way. I grew up scraping my way through life, earning every inch I stood on. This pool, this backyard, this home, it wasn't handed to me. It was a result of years of sacrifice, long shifts, and the promise I made to myself the day I finally escaped a childhood that nearly swallowed me. I had been a foster kid bouncing through 12 different homes before I turned 18. I slept on garage floors. I lived on cereal. I wore shoes that didn't fit, and shirts I didn't choose. Poverty teaches you two things quickly. Nothing is permanent, and no one will protect what's yours unless you learn to do it yourself. So when I finally made it through medical school, working extra shifts, sleeping in empty hallways, refusing to quit even when quitting seemed easier, I promised myself one thing. I would build a space where kids who felt broken could feel safe. A sanctuary, not charity, not pity, just safety. That's why I invested $80,000 into a therapeutic pool. Not for parties, not for wealthy neighbors, for kids battling muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, and chronic pain. Kids who needed warm water to move without hurting. This backyard wasn't a playground. It was a lifeline. And yet a woman who had never struggled a day in her life looked at it like it was wasted property she could repurpose for her own popularity. The signs had been creeping in long before today. I'd see her walking past the fence during sessions, watching with eyes that weren't curious. They were calculating. One day she'd ask, "Do you really need all that space for just a few children?" Another day she'd laugh softly and say, "Amenities like these shouldn't be kept private. Think of the community benefit." Her voice always sounded like velvet hiding venom. Then came the day she stood in my driveway, leaned against my mailbox like she owned it, and said, "Marcus, darling, your pool could be so much more if you just let people who can truly appreciate use it." I told her no. She didn't like that word. 3 days later, after a grueling 16-hour hospital shift, I came home to find my backyard transformed into a full-blown luxury event that I didn't authorize, didn't know about, and definitely didn't allow. Caterers in crisp uniforms floated around the pool. A bartender mixed cocktails on a floating platform. A live string quartet played music like this was a charity gala instead of my private property. A sign near the gate read, "Exclusive aquatic experience, $750 per person." She was charging money, using my space, profiting off my property, stealing my sanctuary. When I confronted her, still in my scrubs, exhausted and furious, she gave me a smile so artificial it should have been sold in a gift shop. "Marcus, don't be dramatic," she said lightly. "This is community wellness. Be grateful." Then, just to twist a knife, she offered me $20. A $20 bill for an $80,000 pool. A $20 tip for her invasion. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just entitlement. This was a hostile takeover wrapped in pastel colors and fake kindness. The next morning the punishment began. She filed complaints with the HOA claiming I was aggressive, uncooperative, and ruining community cohesion. She told neighbors I didn't like children. She made posts online about how I refused to share my underutilized pool with disabled kids in the neighborhood. She edited photos to make me look angry and unhinged. The narrative spread like wildfire, but she didn't know who she was messing with. I went through the original HOA documents. I examined every line of every bylaw. What she waved in my face as policy was nothing but a prop. She forged amendments. She misquoted rules. She created her own authority and hoped no one questioned it. But I questioned everything. And once I found the truth, I installed a gate access system she couldn't override, a security network she couldn't manipulate, a trap she never saw coming. Then, right on schedule, she planned another event, bigger, louder, more invasive. 100 guests, dozens of cars, catering trucks, photographers. She walked onto my property like a queen blessing her kingdom. She told her followers, "Beautiful spaces belong to beautiful people." Little did she know that my backyard was wired with cameras, alarms, and gate systems that answered only to me. She was already bragging, already collecting payment from her guests, already preparing her speech about community unity and wellness. And then, right when the event reached peak arrogance, I pressed a button, the steel gate slammed shut, every exit locked, 30 luxury cars and their wealthy owners suddenly trapped inside my backyard. Panic flickered across the crowd like a gust of wind. People rushed toward the exits only to find steel rising from the ground like the property itself had decided enough was enough. People shouted. Some demanded explanations. Others begged for a way out. And at the center of it all, the woman who created this disaster stood trembling between fury and disbelief. "Open this gate," she screamed. "This is shared property. I declare emergency access." Her voice cracked. She wasn't confident anymore. She wasn't powerful anymore. She was cornered. I walked toward her slowly, calmly, every step echoing louder than her screaming. She jabbed a manicured finger toward me. "You have no right to do this," she shouted. "I am the HOA president. You answer to me." I pulled a folder from my pocket and opened it just enough for her to see the top page, her fake amendments, her forged signatures, her unauthorized events. "This," I said quietly, "is proof you answer to no one, not even the law." "But I do." Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked around desperately for someone to defend her, but the same guests who had praised her an hour earlier now backed away from her like she was diseased. And then she made her final mistake. She lunged toward me, grabbed my arm, and shouted, "You think you can embarrass me? You think you can lock me in? I control this neighborhood." I stepped back just as security lights clicked on automatically, illuminating every corner of the yard.